Hello and welcome everybody to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on all our social networks and to catch us every day by logging onto our website, mexiconewsnetwork.com, for relevant stories and news. Let's start with today's show. 6 months after its inception on June the 6th of this year, Germany's 2016-2017 German Dual Year program has so far presented a total of 766 activities in 38 Mexican cities, based on its 6 themes: culture, science, education, sustainability, innovation, and mobility. Events and activities have so far reached over 2.92 million people in Mexico. Among them have been concerts of classical music, jazz, and electronic music, exhibitions of art, science, industry, and archaeology, exhibitions of German cinematography, exchanges on dance, sound art or scientific journalism, as well as political, academic, and civil meetings on sustainability and the environment. The aim of Dual Year initiatives is to create a closer and long-term link between Mexico and Germany, reinforcing the alliance for the future, which is the theme of this binational meeting. Highlights of the Dual Year to date include the gala concert performed by the German Youth Orchestra at the Palace of Bellas Artes in June. Another highlight was Sustainability Week, held from June the 22nd to 26th in various parts of the Mexican capital and organized by the German Cooperation in Mexico. They discussed research and advances on climate change, biodiversity, and urban and energy sustainability. For the second half of the Dual Year, look out for the Pop-Up Tour starting in February, which will tour 5 cities in Mexico, carrying out activities including German movies, a mobile library, exhibitions, and concerts of jazz and electronic music. In March, the Franz Mayer Museum will host an exhibition on Hans Mayer, who was the director of the Bauhaus and who lived in Mexico, where he left his mark and influence. In April, the Intelligent Mobility Symposium for the Future will address issues such as the use of the electric car, efficiency energy, and innovations in public transport. In other news, crude oil U.S. Gulf Coast refiners are cashing in on rising fuel demand from Mexico, shipping record volumes to the country as Pemex has failed to expand its refining network to supply a fast-growing economy. Since April, Enrique Peña Nieto authorized companies other than state-owned Pemex to buy gasoline and diesel from overseas markets for the first time since the industry was nationalized in 1938. Peña Nieto has been striving to attract investment into the country after the collapse of oil prices undermined his move to overhaul the energy industry. Pemex is still the only sizable producer in Mexico, and its filling stations are the only option for drivers. However, the company's declining production hasn't kept pace with rising demand. Mexico is becoming increasingly dependent on the United States for strategic energy supplies and provides business worth more than $15 billion a year to refiners such as Valero, Marathon Petroleum, and Citgo Petroleum. This has led to a rapid reversal in energy trade between the two countries. For the first time in 2016, crude exporter Mexico will be a net oil importer from the United States, as shipments of refined fuel heading south outnumber shipments of crude to the north, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. In September, Mexico's imports of U.S. fuel surged to a monthly record of about 960,000 barrels per day, according to the Energy Information Administration. The average for the year to date is around 820,000 barrels per day. Refineries in Mexico are running at about 60% of their 1.576 billion barrels per day of capacity, according to the company's data. That leaves the onus on Pemex to import more to cover demand. Mexico is the world's 4th largest consumer of gasoline. In other headlines, Between January and November of 2016, 286,237 SUVs were sold in Mexico. SUV sales in Mexico reached an all-time high from January to November this year. Nissan's X-Trail led the way with 26,703 units sold. SUV sales increased by 17.8% compared to the same period in 2015. This marks the highest increase ever in the history of SUV sales in Mexico, according to data revealed by the Mexican Association of Automotive Distributors. The growing demand for high-end and premium cars in Mexico, which is reflected in increased sales in the SUVs on its different platforms, also generates a greater import of new cars, which this year were at record levels, said Bryce Alvarez, an analyst in the automotive sector of consultancy JD Power. Nissan X-Trail was the best-selling model in this segment, with the sale of 26,703 cars in the first 11 months of the year, giving it a 9.3% market share in the SUV segment. The second most marketed vehicle was the Chevrolet Trax, followed by the Honda CR-V, the Kia Sportage, and the Honda HR-V. And finally, let's take a look at the markets. The Mexican peso decreased 0.21% to 20.58 from 20.62 in the previous trading session. Historically, the Mexican peso reached an all-time high of 20.77 in November of 2016 and a record low of 0.01 in May of 1972. IPC Mexico decreased 0.53% to 44,990 from 45,881 in the previous trading session. Historically, the Mexico stock market IPC index reached an all-time high of 48,694.9 in August of 2016 and a record low of 14,008.2 in August of 2005. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Stay logged on at MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. On behalf of myself and all the production team at Mexico News Network, we wish you a safe, healthy, and prosperous new year. Until next time.